AITA for serving my unfaithful wife divorce papers in her hospital bed. My 36-year-old wife, Jessica, and I, 38, are having serious problems in our marriage. Jessica comes from a family with deep Italian-American roots where cooking was a very serious matter. Her grandmother taught her everything, and when we met, she was already an incredible cook who could make any dish delicious. When we started dating, her cooking completely impressed me. I grew up eating frozen dinners and takeout because my parents never really learned how to cook. I tried a few times when I was younger, but everything ended up either burned or tasteless. So, when Jessica prepared her grandmother's Sunday gravy recipe on our third date, I knew I wanted to marry her. I am not exaggerating when I say that her cooking was one of the main reasons I fell in love. Throughout our marriage, the kitchen has always been her territory. I never complained because, honestly, I did not know how to cook anything really good. Every night, she made dinner for everyone, and I always made sure to thank her. I would tell her it was delicious. I helped her with the dishes and just stayed out of the way while she cooked. This suited us perfectly. She seemed happy with this arrangement, and for my part, I was more than thrilled to have homemade meals every day. We have 2 children together, a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. About 18 months ago, my son started watching cooking videos online. At first, it was just something he did on his phone when he was bored. Then he started asking Jessica questions about different techniques and ingredients. She seemed genuinely happy that he was interested in something she loved. They started going to the grocery store together every Saturday morning, and twice a week, they made dinner together. Jessica guided him through the recipes, showed him how to chop vegetables properly, and explained how to season dishes. I thought it was great that they shared something like this. My son got really invested in it. He started keeping a notebook where he wrote down recipes and notes on what worked or did not. He watched videos before school and during lunch whenever he had free time. In about 6 months, he had improved a surprising amount. The meals he prepared with Jessica were as good as what she made on her own. I was impressed, but I did not think much more of it, other than being proud to see my son stick with something. Then, about 2 months ago, my son came to me one afternoon and asked if he could make an entire dinner all by himself. He wanted to try making a pasta dish. He had watched videos about something with a creamy sauce and pancetta. I told him it sounded great and that I could not wait to taste it. Jessica was sitting on the couch nearby, and when I looked at her, she had a strange expression on her face. She did not exactly say no, but she started making remarks about how the recipe might be too complicated, that he should wait until he had more experience, or that, at the very least, she should supervise. My son looked disappointed. So, I told Jessica that he had been cooking for over a year and that it would be good for him to try something on his own. Eventually, she agreed, but she did not look happy. That Saturday, Jessica took my son to the store to buy the ingredients. When they returned, my son went straight to the kitchen and told Jessica he wanted to do everything himself. She came into the living room where my daughter and I were watching TV and sat down without saying anything. She was watching the kitchen out of the corner of her eye. I asked her if she was okay, and she said yes. But clearly, she was not. Her jaw was clenched, and she was bouncing her leg up and down, something she only does when she is stressed. I tried to make conversation by telling her that my son would surely want to cook with her again after this, that he just wanted to prove to himself that he could do it alone. She nodded but did not really answer. When my son called us for dinner about an hour later, I was truly surprised by the quality of what he had prepared. The pasta was perfectly cooked. The sauce had a rich color, and he had even made a simple little salad to go with it. I sat down and took a bite, and it was really good. Not just good for a 13-year-old boy, but genuinely good. The flavors were balanced. Nothing was overcooked or undercooked, and he had clearly put thought into the presentation. I started praising him immediately. I told him the sauce was amazing, the pasta was perfect, and I was impressed that he managed to get everything ready at the same time. I also gave him a few small suggestions for next time, like adding a little more garlic or letting the pancetta get a bit crispier. I was trying to be encouraging while giving him a few tips, as I thought a father should do. My daughter took a bite and immediately made a face of disgust. She pushed her plate away and said it was bad. Before I could say anything, Jessica cleared her throat and pushed her plate forward. She agreed with what my daughter had just said, claiming the pasta was overcooked and the sauce was too salty. She said it in a way that did not sound like constructive criticism at all. I looked at my son, and his face completely changed. He stared at his plate without eating. I kept eating, telling him it was really good, trying to make up for what Jessica had just said. But the damage was already done. He barely ate. And when Jessica got up to clear the table, she took my daughter's plate and her own without asking if anyone else was finished. I did not say anything in front of the kids. Jessica and I have always had a rule: no fighting in front of them. But after dinner, I found my son in his room lying on his bed facing the wall. I sat next to him and put my hand on his shoulder. I told him his mother probably had a long day, that she might not be feeling well, and that she did not really mean what she said. I repeated that the dinner was really good and that he should be proud of himself. He did not say anything. He just nodded. After a few minutes, I left him alone. Later that night, after both kids were in bed, I went to see Jessica. She was in our bedroom, getting ready for sleep as if nothing had happened. I closed the door and asked her what had happened at the table. She tried to downplay the situation, saying she had simply been honest about the meal. I insisted, telling her she had been unnecessarily harsh and that our son had clearly been affected by it. Then, she got angry, turned to me, and asked when in our entire life I had ever complimented her cooking the way I did our sons that night. She said I spent the whole meal talking about how amazing everything was, giving him detailed compliments on specific things he had done well. She added that I never did that for her dishes, that I just said, "Thank you," and left it at that. I was speechless for a moment because I absolutely did not expect that. Then I made a mistake. I laughed a little, not because I found it funny, but because I was surprised that she was jealous of our own son. It was barely a little exhale through my nose, but she heard it. She started yelling at me, asking what was so funny about how she felt. I tried to explain that I was so enthusiastic because I wanted to encourage our son, that he was just starting out and needed that support. I told her I did not compliment her as much because she was already an incredible cook and did not need constant reassurance. She calmed down a bit after that. She admitted she had been too hard on our son and said she would apologize to him the next day. I thought the story ended there. The following Monday morning, I was getting ready to take my son to school. I went outside to start our SUV while he grabbed his backpack. When he got in, he had his hood up and did not want to look at me. I asked him what was wrong, and at first, he did not answer. I pulled over a few houses down and asked him again. He then told me that after I left, Jessica had taken him aside and explained that from now on, she would be doing all the cooking, that she had thought about it and decided it was better for him to focus on other things. My son's voice was shaking as he told me. I told him I would talk to his mother and that everything would be okay. I stopped at a convenience store to buy him a candy bar before dropping him off at school. That day, I left work early. I got home around 2 p.m. before the kids came back from school. Jessica was in the kitchen. As soon as I walked in, I asked her why she had told our son he could not cook anymore. She replied that it was her kitchen and her decision. I asked her how she could do that to him after promising to apologize. We started yelling at each other. I called her vindictive, telling her she was punishing our son just because she was mad at me. She replied that our son was making a big deal out of nothing and that anyway, cooking was not something boys should waste their time on. That remark completely caught me off guard. She had never said anything like that before. The argument ended when we were both too angry to continue. I went to the guest room and stayed there for the rest of the night. The next day, Jessica took my daughter to the mall after school. They came back with bags and bags of new clothes, shoes, and toys. It was way more than my daughter needed, and I immediately understood what Jessica was doing. She was using our money to spoil my daughter while completely ignoring our son. I confronted her that afternoon, and we argued again. That evening, I permanently moved my things into the guest room. For the following month, Jessica continued this behavior. She would take my daughter out for ice cream, buy her whatever she wanted, and barely speak to our son unless it was absolutely necessary. During this time, my son stopped watching cooking videos and stopped asking questions about food. He would just come home from school, do his homework, and stay in his room. I tried to balance things out by taking my son to do activities he liked. Sometimes, I also brought my daughter along so it did not look like I was playing favorites. But when my daughter came with us, she spent the whole time talking about everything Jessica had bought her or the special attention she was getting. You could see it bothered my son, but he never said anything. I talked to my parents and my younger brother about what was happening. They all agreed that Jessica was wrong, but they kept saying she would eventually calm down, that marriages sometimes go through rough patches. None of them seemed to understand how serious the situation had become. After a month of this, I could not stand looking at Jessica anymore. Seeing her treat our son like he did not exist while showering our daughter with gifts made me see her in a completely different light. We had argued over the years, but she had never made the kids pay for our conflicts. This time was different. I started wondering if I really wanted to stay married to someone capable of being so cruel to her own son. I knew I could not just jump straight to divorce. I had to try to do something to fix the situation, or at least try. That is why I am posting here. I need advice on how to approach the idea of therapy with Jessica without triggering another huge argument. I do not even know if she will agree to go. A part of me fears that if I push her to do this, she will get even worse with our son. But I cannot let things continue like this. Edit. The food was good. I do not know why my daughter made that face. I imagine it is because she is still a kid, and at her age, I only wanted to eat burgers and pizza too. Update 1. I took my son to my parents' house the Saturday after my first post. I told them everything that had happened, and also let my son explain it to them himself. Seeing their grandson tell them all of this completely changed their attitude. My mother started crying, and my father said he would support whatever decision I made. I then decided that Jessica had to leave the house until she figured out what was wrong with her. I spoke with a lawyer who explained my options. In our state, we could file for a no-fault divorce after a separation period, or we could file based on fault, like infidelity or abuse, which could sometimes speed things up and impact the financial settlement. The lawyer told me that even if we fix things, having the divorce papers drafted was a prudent decision. That Saturday night, my son and daughter stayed at my parents' house. I went home on Sunday morning with my mother. She spoke with Jessica first because they have always gotten along well. Then, I told Jessica she had to leave the house until she understood why she had treated our son that way. I expected her to refuse, but she agreed. The fact that my mother was present probably helped. I gave her 2 options. She could stay with my parents, or I would pay for a nearby hotel room. Her parents lived 6 hours away, so that was not really an option. I also told her she had to go to therapy every week and that I would pay for that too. The next day, Jessica and I sat down with our son and daughter to explain that their mother was going to stay somewhere else for a while. My son seemed to understand. My daughter became very sad and started crying. Jessica eventually calmed her down by promising that they would continue to see each other regularly. Jessica moved into the guest room at my parents' house that afternoon. For the first month, things seemed to be getting better. Jessica attended every therapy session. I met her for dinner with the kids a few times a week, and she was treating our son normally again. She apologized to him for what she had said and done, and she seemed genuinely sincere. She was behaving like the woman I had married, and I started to think that maybe we could fix things. Then everything fell apart during the 5th week. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was making dinner for the kids when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Yes, I know how strange it might sound that I was making dinner, but it was still better than buying ready-made meals. And plus, my son helped me a bit, which encouraged him to get back in the kitchen. Jessica sent me a long series of messages insulting me in every way possible. She said I was trying to steal her kids, that I was probably cheating on her, that I was a fool who wanted to control her life. The messages went on and on. Then she turned off her phone, and I immediately called my mother. She told me Jessica had left the house that afternoon with all her things without saying where she was going. Over the next week, I managed to piece together what had happened. Jessica had talked about our separation to her best friend, Jenna. I never liked Jenna. She was single, constantly partied, and before we had kids, she often convinced Jessica to go out drinking with her. Jenna convinced Jessica that I was trying to kick her out permanently and take the kids away from her. Jessica moved in with Jenna and completely lost control. She stopped answering my calls. My mother also tried to contact her, but Jessica did not answer her either. Then Jenna sent me a message calling me a loser and saying Jessica was too good for me. She also claimed Jessica was seeing a younger guy she had met at a nightclub. I took screenshots of everything. Jessica spent that entire week making poor choices with Jenna. From what I learned later, it was a period of reckless behavior. It was the kind of life Jessica had left behind when our relationship got serious. The following Thursday at 3 a.m., I got a call from the hospital. Jessica had experienced a serious medical emergency, and someone had dropped her off at the ER without giving their name. I called my mother to come watch the kids, then I drove to the hospital. When I arrived, I was told she was stable but sleeping. I sat in the waiting room for hours. When they finally let me see her, she was awake but in terrible shape. She started apologizing immediately, crying and saying she had ruined everything. She confirmed some of what I had already figured out about that week. I asked her directly if she had been unfaithful. She stopped talking and just stared at the floor. That was all the answer I needed. I told her it was neither the time nor the place to discuss all this, that she needed to focus on her recovery. Then I left. The next morning, I went back to the hospital. They were just giving Jessica her discharge papers when I walked into the room. When the doctor said she was fine, I pulled out the divorce papers. I told her I expected her to sign them within a week. I also told her I had evidence that she had been unfaithful during our separation. For the next 2 weeks, Jessica called me nonstop. Some days she would cry and beg me to give her another chance, saying she had made a terrible mistake. Other days, she would yell at me, insult me, and threaten to make the divorce as difficult as possible. She alternated between these two behaviors. Her family and friends also started writing to me. Her sister called me a heartless jerk. Her mother said I was abandoning Jessica right when she needed me the most. Jenna sent me more messages saying I had destroyed Jessica's life. I understand it might not have been the best time to hand her the papers, but she was stable and recovering, and if she had another setback, at least she was in the hospital. I was sure it was what I had to do. I did not want her in my life anymore, and I did not want my kids near her after everything she had done. I planned to file for full custody. I have not told my son and daughter about the divorce yet. They think their mother is still away trying to get better. I plan to tell them in a week or 2 when school is out. Okay, wait a second. So she really left. Like, she packed her bags and just disappeared with Jenna. After all that, after therapy, after the apologies, after things were actually starting to get better, and then Jenna sends a message saying Jessica is seeing a guy she met at a club. I really cannot believe it. And then that call from the hospital at 3 a.m. Honestly, I got chills reading this because no matter what Jessica did, she is still someone's mother. She is still a wife who completely lost herself in a matter of weeks. But I will say this, the narrator did not break down. He drove to that hospital in the middle of the night. He sat there for hours, and he still handled the situation with a certain dignity. That takes some strength. Honestly, this story went from a kitchen argument to a complete life meltdown in record time. I absolutely did not expect that. Update 2. Jessica signed the divorce papers. It took 3 weeks instead of 1, but in the end, she signed them. Her lawyer tried to contest the infidelity claim, but I had the screenshots of Jenna's messages, and Jessica eventually admitted what had happened. This meant we could move forward without a lengthy separation period. The custody battle was harder than I expected. Jessica's lawyer argued that she was going through a mental health crisis and deserved another chance to be a proper mother. My lawyer brought up the emotional abuse toward my son, the health crisis, the substance use, and the infidelity. We ended up reaching a compromise. I got primary custody, and Jessica is entitled to supervised visits every other weekend. I told my son and daughter about the divorce on the first day of summer vacation. My daughter cried for hours. My son asked me if it was because of the kitchen thing, and I told him no, that his mother and I had problems that had nothing to do with him. I do not think he believed me, but I repeated it to him several times. Jessica's parents came the following week and stayed for a few days. They took my daughter out a lot and also tried to spend time with my son, but he always found excuses to avoid them. Before leaving, her father took me aside and told me I had destroyed his daughter's life. I reminded him that she had destroyed it herself. The first supervised visit took place at a community center 3 weeks ago. My mother came with me, and she stayed with Jessica, my son, and my daughter for 2 hours while I waited in the parking lot. My mother told me it went well. My daughter was happy to see Jessica. My son was polite but distant. Jessica cried several times. My son started cooking alone again last month. One day, I came home from work and found him in the kitchen making a chicken stir-fry. I asked him if he wanted help, and he said no. He is smart. He stopped me from ruining everything. When dinner was ready, the 3 of us sat down to eat. My daughter made a face at first, maybe out of habit, but after tasting the food, she said it was good. My son said nothing. He just kept eating. Since then, he cooks twice a week. He would like to do it more often, but I feel like a father exploiting his son. The other days, my son helps me, but I try to prepare as much as possible myself. We also have pizza nights sometimes. The second visit with Jessica was last weekend. This time, she asked if she could take the kids to my parents' house instead of seeing them at the community center. I agreed because my mother would still be there to supervise. My daughter came back talking about how Jessica promised to take her shopping soon. My son, however, came home silent and went straight to his room. I asked him later if everything was okay. He told me she kept asking him questions about whether I was seeing anyone, if I talked about her, that kind of thing. I told him he did not have to answer those kinds of questions if he did not want to, and if she insisted, he should tell me. The divorce should be finalized by next month. After that, Jessica wants to modify the custody agreement. According to my mother, she has been sober for almost 2 months and continues going to therapy. Her lawyer has already sent a letter saying she wants to switch to unsupervised visits. I am not ready to consider that yet. My daughter asks me when she can sleep at her mother's house, and I tell her soon without giving a date. My son, on the other hand, has never asked for it once. My relationship with both of my kids has changed since all this started. My daughter is mad at me most of the time. She blames me for the divorce, even though I have already explained what is going on, tailoring my explanations to what a 10-year-old can understand. She makes remarks saying everything was better before, that I ruined everything. I think my kids would do better talking to someone who understands these things. I am afraid of making a mistake and saying something I should not. My son is different. He is quieter than before. He does his homework, helps around the house, cooks a few times a week, but he does not talk to me like he used to. Before all this, he would tell me about the videos he was watching or what he was learning at school. I thought getting Jessica out of the house would fix things for him, but I am no longer sure that is the case. Jessica sent me a message last week asking if we could talk in person, just the two of us. I told her there was nothing to say, that the time for that had passed, but she seems determined to talk, even though I have no idea what she could want. If it was about the custody agreement, she would go through the lawyers. So, the divorce papers were signed. Jessica admitted to the infidelity. The custody battle happened, and I know some people will say the narrator was cold to hand her the papers directly at the hospital. But honestly, at that point, what else could he do? He gave her every possible chance, absolutely every single one. What struck me the most was the son asking, "Is it because of the kitchen thing?" That question kind of broke my heart, because this child has been carrying this weight all this time, and you can tell him 100 times that it is not his fault. His father did, but kids feel things differently. He is going to hold on to that for a while. The daughter crying for hours, the son going silent. These are two children experiencing the same loss in two completely opposite ways, and both reactions are valid. That part felt very real to me. Update 3. The divorce was finalized last month. Jessica did not contest the final terms. I kept the house, primary custody of both children, and the majority of our savings since I was the only one working for the past 8 years, and the infidelity played a major role. If she had not been unfaithful, I probably would have had to give her 50% of the house and my savings. She kept her car and a little money to start living on her own again. She moved into an apartment about 20 minutes away. It is a small 1-bedroom apartment, but she said she was looking for a job and a bigger place where the kids could have their own room to spend the night. What she says is one thing. What will actually happen is another. The supervised visits continued for 6 more weeks. My daughter always went eagerly. My son went without complaining, but afterward, he said almost nothing about what happened. Then Jessica's lawyer filed a motion to remove the supervised visit requirement. There was a hearing where Jessica had to prove she was stable. She presented documents proving she was attending therapy and had a steady job, but she failed a court-ordered drug test. The judge not only denied the unsupervised visits, but also suspended all visitation rights. Before that, Jessica had asked me if I had thought about what she wrote regarding an in-person discussion. I had ignored her because I had already given her my answer, but she did not accept it, and she showed up at the house knowing the kids would be at my parents' place. She told me she was working on a lot of things in therapy and that she now understood why she had reacted the way she did about my son's cooking. To be clear, this was before she failed the drug test. She explained that when I praised my son so much, feelings tied to her own mother and grandmother came to the surface. Apparently, her grandmother was extremely critical of her mother's cooking, always comparing it to her own and judging it inferior. Jessica grew up watching her mother try desperately to get her grandmother's approval without ever succeeding. When Jessica became a good cook, It was the first time her grandmother gave her real compliments. She said that when I praised our son's cooking so enthusiastically, she felt like I was doing to her what her grandmother did to her mother. She felt like I was replacing her with a better version of herself, exactly how her grandmother implied that her mother was a disappointment. I listened to it all without saying much. When she finished, I told her I understood her explanation, but that it did not excuse what she did to our son. She admitted that was true. She said she knew she had hurt him deeply and that she was trying to fix things, but she also knew it might already be too late. She asked me if there was a possibility of trying again. Not immediately, but maybe later, when she had proven she was doing better. I told her no. Then she started crying. She said she expected that answer, but had hoped I would change my mind. I told her no again. Too much had happened. The way she had treated our son and the infidelity made it impossible. At least my kids are doing much better. I notice it mostly with my son, who cooks more and is excited to learn new things, while my daughter is already more open with me and visibly less upset than before. Therapy is helping them tremendously, much more than I could do on my own. Edit 1. To clarify 2 things. First, I stopped paying for Jessica's therapy after she was unfaithful. I only did it when I thought she was genuinely making an effort to improve things, when we still had a chance. Second, both children are definitely mine. Paternity tests were requested in the middle of the divorce as part of the normal custody procedures. I did not find it necessary to mention it because I thought it was standard. Maybe it is not, and it was just my lawyer demanding it. But I was so overwhelmed by everything happening that I do not remember the details, only the result. Edit 2. Jessica entered an addiction treatment program, thanks to her parents. I do not think her substance issue is that severe since it has not been going on for years, but it is a good thing her parents are concerned about her and helping her before it gets worse. Even being in this program will help her stay away from Jenna, who is essentially the person who helped destroy Jessica's life. Something her parents and family are also starting to understand. So Jessica showed up at the house to explain herself. And look, I will give her one thing. Her explanation about her grandmother and her mother was actually very insightful. It is clearly something therapy helped her understand, and it makes sense, really. But then, she failed the drug test after asking for unsupervised visits. After all that, then she asked if there was a chance they could try again, and the narrator simply replied, no. A clear no. And honestly, what else could he say at that point? The part that struck me the most is when she said it might already be too late with her son. And I think deep down she knows it is true. That is the saddest part of this whole story. Not the divorce, not the legal troubles, but a mother who looked at her own child and let jealousy take over, and now she has to live with that. Update 4. I thought that after all these years, you might like an update on our lives, some sort of closure, because I did not have much to say after my last update and edits. My son just turned 18, and he got into culinary school to pursue what he loves. I do not know anyone who was so sure of what they wanted to do later in life, but my son has known since he started cooking. He has this crazy and wonderful plan to travel the world once he finishes his studies. He wants to work in different countries, in different restaurants, and absorb a little bit of each cuisine. My daughter is now 14 and is doing much better, partly because therapy helped her, but also because she has grown up and understands adult matters better. She now understands everything her mother did, and it brought her closer to her brother. The food might also have something to do with it, as there is no one who does not appreciate it. She is also starting to discover some passions, and I am helping her pursue them. It is a good thing when you are so young to know what you love and go after it. If I can do that for my daughter too, I will do everything I can. Jessica is a different story, and not a very good one. After some time in rehab and a few months of sobriety, she filed for a custody modification again. This time, the drug tests were negative, but what she was asking for was different. First, she hired another lawyer because the first one, as far as I know, no longer wanted to handle her case after the positive tests. Second, she asked for custody of my daughter only. Over the years, I have had several conversations with her parents, who maintain a relationship with their grandchildren, and they told me some interesting things. After her treatment, she came back with this idea that my son was responsible for everything, including her marriage. Her parents were already very angry with her when she failed her drug test. But hearing her say something against their grandson was the final straw. She was kicked out of her parents' house, and I think she went to live with the friend I told you about, or another one. Her request went nowhere because of her entire track record, and after that, there were no more proceedings. I think she ran out of money or patience to keep fighting to be a mother. Shortly after, she moved to a small town a few states away with her boyfriend, and I never heard from her directly again. Her parents know a little more, but judging by the look on their faces, it is not good news. They avoid talking about it. I do not recall my son ever mentioning his mother during all this time. I think he is still hurt by what happened. My daughter is less so, although it is not like she asks to see her. She is curious to hear about her mother, but she knows the same things you do, and she stopped asking so many questions since she found out she lives with another man. I have been dating someone for almost 2 years, and everything is going well. My kids already know her and have accepted her. They have no problem with me seeing someone because they told me they thought I was a little sad before. That is possible. Even though I did not really have time to think about myself and was focused on other things. I do not see anything else to add. So, thank you very much, and greetings to everyone. Update on Jenna. Unfortunately, I do not have much information, only what I have heard. She has been arrested several times for public intoxication and creating a disturbance, but I prefer not to imagine the kind of situations that woman must have gotten into. I do not think her life is very stable if she is still living that kind of lifestyle at her age. Comment. Watching this story unfold, I keep coming back to the idea of quiet strength. It is about knowing when to draw a line, not with anger, but with a deep sense of self-respect. Sometimes, the most loving act is protecting the peace of those who depend on you. True responsibility isn't about fixing someone else. It is about creating a safe space for healing to begin. Healing itself is a journey, and it often starts with the difficult choice to leave a harmful environment behind. This process is never easy, and it is okay to acknowledge the sadness that comes with it. Remember that being kind to yourself is just as important as being kind to others. By setting clear boundaries, you give everyone, including yourself, the best chance to find their own path forward. Ultimately, you deserve to build a life founded on tranquility and mutual respect. I hope you always remember that you have the strength to make that choice. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.